So as you can see guys, I am now here at my GIMP user interface. So as you can see above, I have here my menu bars. So I have file, edit, select, view, image, layers, controls, and other menus. So if you're going to go to file or select file, you can see that we can create a new file, open an existing file, and do other stuffs. So to get started, let's go first to file and select new or control N. So after clicking new image, a dialog box will appear, and you can see here we have our templates. So for templates, there are various templates that you can use if you want. Okay, so but for today's seminar, I wanted to use for this seminar, I'll be using 1920 by 1080 px. So px stands for pixel. So you can use pixel if you solely want to use your image for web purposes only. But if you intend to print what you're going to create, then I would suggest that you choose a different format like inches, centimeters, or even points. And then you can choose if you want your image to be in a landscape or portrait format. So for this seminar, I'll be using the landscape format, and then click OK. So now you already created your GIMP file. So first thing we have to do is to save our file. So go to file and click save as. Now when saving the file, you'll see that it's going to save it into an XCF file format, not a JPEG format. Now what is the difference between the two? When saving a file in an XCF format, it will retain all the details that is necessary for you to edit your file in GIMP. Unlike if you're going to save it into a JPEG format, it will compress all the details into one. For example, if you created an image with a text and save it into a JPEG format, and then find out that you had a typographical error, it will be harder for you to edit the text without destroying the image. If you are still not done with your image, I would suggest to save it in an XCF format. And if you're done, that's the time to render or to save it into a .jpeg format. So for this one, I'll save it as GIMP seminar .xcf and click save. And now our file has been saved. So as you can see, we have here our canvas. Now if you want to change the color of your canvas, there are two ways that you can do that. First is you can use the paint bucket tool. So as you can see, bucket fill is used to fill a specific area with a specific color. So if I'm going to click fill bucket, the properties will be shown on the left side. So to select the color of the bucket that you'll be using to fill, you can click on the foreground color fill, which is this one. So click on it, and you can now select the type of color or the color that you want to use to fill your canvas. So for this one, I would like to use this sky blue image, and click OK, and then click on your canvas. So as you can see, our canvas has now turned into a color sky blue. Now, the other way is to use a gradient tool. Gradient tool allows you to use two or more colors, unlike the bucket fill, which only allows one color. So to use it, right click on the bucket fill icon and select gradient. Now, as you can see, the default color of your gradient would be your foreground color and your background color, which is blue and white. So for me to fill, just click and drag for the fill gradient to take effect. Now, if you want to change the color of the gradient, again, just click on the foreground color and select a different color. For example, let's try to use red and hit OK. And then also the background color. Okay, let's try to select yellow and click OK. If you're not satisfied with how your gradient fill looks, you can still adjust it by clicking on the plus icon at the end of the line you created and then drag it to change your gradient. So for this seminar, let me change it back to blue and white. So the next thing we're going to do now is to import images on our canvas. To do that, click on the File menu and select Open as Layer. After clicking on Open as Layer, a dialog box will be shown. A dialog box will appear and select the image that you want to use or you want to add on your canvas. So now, as you can see, I was able to open an image on my canvas and you can see that it is opened in a different layer. The layers allows us to separate medias from one another so that we can solely work on a specific media without changing or affecting the other medias. For example, if I wanted to change the color of my background, I'll use the Fill Bucket tool, then click on the background layer. Now, I'm going to drop the fill color on top of the image that I have just imported. But as you can see, nothing happened to our image because since I have selected the background layer, the fill bucket only took effect on our background image. So if I'm going to hide our imported image, you can see that the fill bucket only affected the background layer that we just selected and not the image that was being imported. So now let me undo the changes. To undo, just simply go to Edit and click Undo or Control Z. Okay, the next thing is using brushes. Okay, so click on the brush tool and brush. So using the brush allows us to freely create strokes or lines on our canvas using our mouse. So take note that there are two types of brushes. We have the hard brush and the soft brush. Now, the difference between hard brush and soft brush is that hard brushes have a rough edges compared to soft brushes. For example, first of all, create a layer for your brush strokes. So to do that, just go to the Layers palette and click New Layer and click OK. So now, as you can see, we had a new layer created. So as you can see, we have added a new layer. So now, I'm going to select the brush tool and brush on the image. As you can see, nothing happened. It is because the layer that we created is below the image that we imported earlier. And it is blocking our stroke. Or it is blocking the brush stroke that we just created. So, to make it appear, we just place or drag the layer on top of the layer of the image that we just imported. And as you can see, you can now see the brush stroke. That is why layer arrangements is very important in GIMP. So now, let me change my brush stroke into a soft brush. If you want to change the size of your brush, you can just simply go to the properties palette and increase the size of the brush. Or you can use the braces key on your open and close brace key on your keyboard to increase and decrease the size of the brush. As you can see, the hard brush has rough edges around it, while the soft brush has a smooth and blurry edges. So it's up to you what type of brush you want to use on your images. Also, you can use different brush types. Now, I want to delete these brushes. To delete this, we have to delete the layer where it is created. So, click on the layer and select delete layer. So, our brushes are now gone, and this time around, I'll be teaching you on how you can add text on your images. Now, click on the text tool. Shortcut key is T, and then click on your canvas. And as you can see, a small square has appeared. Now, this is called the boundaries of your text. To expand, just click on one of the corners and click and drag to expand the border. The text boundaries allows you to place your text only inside the boundaries that you created. For example, if I'm going to type, as you can see, the text is only appearing inside the boundaries that you set. Now, to adjust the boundaries, just click on the corners of the boundary that you created and click and drag to adjust. Now, to change the font style and color, let me first delete this and change the file font to Times New Roman and the size to 70 and the color to white. Click OK, and then now let me adjust my boundaries. Now, to move the text, click on the Move tool and move the text where you want to place it. Now, as you can see, the text is not visible because of the light background. So, what I'm going to do now is to create a drop shadow to make the text visible. Now, to create a drop shadow, make sure that you selected the text layer and then go to filters and select light and shadows and select drop shadows. So as you can see, a drop shadow dialog box will appear, and we can now change the settings of the drop shadow that we prefer. So I'll be increasing the opacity so for the drop shadow to be clear. And click OK. So as you can see, a drop shadow has been placed at the back of our text. Next thing we're going to do is to add shapes on our images. First, we need to create a new layer to separate our shapes from our other medias. So, click on the rectangle selection tool if you want to create a rectangle or a square. And then, click and drag to create a rectangle. And if you want to create a square, hold the shift on your keyboard to create a proportional square object. But for this seminar, I'll be creating a rectangle. Now, right-click on that rectangle and go to Edit and select Fill with foreground color. So as you can see, we just created a rectangle. To change its color, just click on the foreground color and select the color you want to use. Click OK and use the fill bucket. Make sure that you selected the right layer and fill. Now to create a circle, first thing you have to do is again create a new layer. To avoid confusion, let's just name our layer circle. Okay, and then select the ellipse select and click and drag to create a circle. You can hold shift to create a perfect circle and release. After that, right click, edit, fill with background color. And then you can use the move tool to move the shape around. Same with the rectangle. Now as you can see, there is a circle selected here. To remove that one, just click on the circular ellipse tool and then just one click anywhere to remove that. And click, go back to move tool. Now what I wanted to do next is to change the opacity of these shapes. To do that, click on the layer of the object, and on top of that you will have opacity. You can reduce the opacity to control the visibility of the object. The next thing I want to do is to change the scale of these objects. I want to make it a bit smaller. So to do that, click on the scale tool. Shortcut is Shift S. And then click and drag to scale the object. If you're done, just move the object back. Then let's try to add some text. change its font color. And its font style. So the next thing I'm going to teach you is how to remove certain part of an image and remove it. The next thing I'm going to teach you is how to select and remove a certain or specific type or a part of your image. So first thing we're going to do is we'll have to import a new image. So go to File, and then click on Open as Layer. Then let's select the image that we want to import. There. Okay. So now let's go to Layers, and then Transparency, and select Add Alpha Channel. And then now, we're going to select the kid using the ellipse tool. Okay. And now, I'll just adjust to make sure that the entire child has been selected. And now, press the delete button. As you can see, the kid will be, or the selected area will be deleted. But we don't want to delete the kid. We want to delete what is surrounding the selection. So what I'm going to do now is to right click, select, and invert. What it's going to do is that it's going to invert the selection. So if I'm going to press delete, it will delete what is on the surrounding. Before moving the selection, I have to remove the selection first. So you can do that by just using the ellipse tool and then click once or click anywhere. Now we are going to use the move tool to move our image. Okay. Another thing that we can use is using the free select. So, free select allows us to freely select parts of the image. So, for example, let me import again another image. So, first, I'll have to go to Layers, and then go to Transparency, Add Alpha Channel. And then, I'll be selecting the free select tool. Again, free select tool allows us to select parts of the image freely. So you'll just have to keep dragging and click on the area where you start first to end. So we have now selected the image. If you're going to click the delete button, it will delete that part. Or if you're going to select, invert, and click delete, it will delete the remaining part. So again, after that, let's move image. Now what I want to do is to rotate our image so it would fit on the lower right portion of our image. To do that, let's go to let's select the rotate tool. So right click on the shape scale tool and then select rotate. And rotate the image. If you want to rotate it precisely, just hold the shift button to help you on rotating the image. If you're done, release and click on the move tool and drag your image. As you can see, using the freehand tool is quite messy, especially if you're not really that good in using the mouse. So, we also have the scissor tool, which is a lot easier to use to select parts of our images. So click on the scissors tool. So now, let me again import a new file. So again, I'll be selecting the film, but this time around, I'll be using the scissor tool to select it. So first, we have to go to Layers, and then Transparency, and add Alpha Channel. So now, just simply click anywhere around the object that you want to select. As you can see, by clicking on the surrounding of the image, scissor tool will automatically adjust its selection on the image based on the image color surrounding it. Now, to close the image or to finish the selection, click on the first segment when you first started. And then, click inside the selection to select it. Now, if you're going to click delete, it will now delete the selection. Now, let me undo it and select the inverse. Invert and delete. So first, let me rotate the image. And then, click the move tool to move the image to where we want it. Now, the next thing we're going to do is that we're going to remove this excess selection that we had using our eraser tool. To do that, select the eraser tool. Make sure that you have selected the layer where the image is located and simply erase. Click and drag on the area that you want to erase. To adjust the size of your eraser, you can just simply hit the open and close brace on your keyboard to adjust the size of your brush. The next thing I'm going to do is to teach you how to add smudges, blur, and burn on your images. So, click on smudge. Shortcut key is S. Now, smudge allows us to add smudges on our images. As you can see, parts of the images are now being smudged. And then, when you right click the smudge icon, you can select blur or burn. Now, blur allows us to blur portions of the images. For example, after smudging, I'll blur the image that was smudged. And then, after blurring, you can also select burn. What burn does is it darkens the area that is selected. As you can see, I'm just burning the area. Okay. And lastly is the crop tool. Now, crop tool is used if you want to crop our image. So, just select the area you want to crop. And click enter to apply crop. So that is all the basics for GIMP. Hope you learned something. And now, let's proceed with video editing.